The Nature of Death, a talk by Oscar Ichazo. In The Nature of Death, Oscar Ichazo offers a higher point of view about death and its inevitability. In this casual presentation to the Arica School, Ichazo introduces Socrates, who brings up the great question about death. He also presents his interpretation of the Socratic mind as an enlightened mind. For those without this perspective, suffering is their main experience associated with death. By entering the state of the good or enlightenment, a person will have true knowledge about death in order to transcend suffering. Ichazo takes us from the mental structures connected to death to a higher state of the good life or happiness as a transformed view of death in itself.
The preoccupation of death as the central basis of our existence. So let's say our existence as human beings is really marked by the consciousness that death is something that exists, that inevitably is going to come, and that we all have to face the music. And with that, of course, the lateral complaints, so much suffering and, and sickness and old age. No, it's about death. Inasmuch you don't recognize there, you are in a very, very, very primitive state of mind. In reality, only when we understand seriously that dead is dead, we are not yet mature. Only when we really face that question seriously, we get a shock and we jump or die, And it's very difficult because you go on turning around just one question that demoralizes you totally, that you don't know what to do with your life. It's not just a joke. It never is. But it's a happening in our lives, so everything is a structure around it. The great input of Socrates, for me anyhow, that's how I read him, it had been precisely to bring up the great question and tell everybody that he have the answer. That is what he had been doing all his life. Telling everybody the thing about death. That if you really discover yourself and come to know yourself, in reality, you'll find that yourself is pure thought, uncompromised. It's a thought that is not compromised in knowing anything. It's a thought that is completely accomplished, doesn't move. Is the Socratic mind. But Socratic mind here is enlightened mind. That's that. And what really he was provoking everybody is to recognize, number one, that they were not enlightened. That they didn't have the answer. And If by not having the answer it makes them suffer, Socrates in that was a little bit like crazy wisdom, it's like enjoy it. No? Yeah. Well, but if you see the magnificent transmission of Socrates, that proven that really, if in your life you have really achieved the condition of the good, the state, nothing wrong can happen to you. Because once that you are in the good, everything is good. You are in the kingdom. Nothing wrong can happen to that person. The point is this, even when alive. And that was what he was proving. He was saying to everybody, look, I did it. I am there already. And he explained to everybody there, I say, look, I have been saying all my life that to be a philosopher is really to learn how to die. We philosophers are people that suddenly have understand that we are going to die. And there have to be a way in which there is no death. Why is this? Because it would be such a tremendous injustice again, If we are alive here, it's because there is good. So consequently, we should find it. And it finds that the good precisely is not in the material world. Why? Because the material world changes. And because it changes, it dissolves, it dies. It has that misery of a changing thing. That, let's say, seeing of what is material. But that's a wrong point of seeing, you see. But then so many religious theories suddenly came with the idea that, and they did, suddenly the body becomes the charge of the spirit. And that is not a wrong way to consider. The thing is that inasmuch we are attached to the body, we believe that that is our main preoccupation. Of course, we are out of the point. Speaking in our language, just like that, is out. Have compromised his divine mind with materiality. And that is not that we are not going to think about materiality. The thing is very simple. It's about the point of view. One enlightened point of view see everything so different. How different? They are meaningless. And at that point, when we start observing that they are meaningless, we start understanding that we are rather in a game, in a play. And when we are then in the play, totally awakened to the play, it's impossible for us to forget the spirit. It happens that we start spiritualizing our life in everything. we become real philosophers. For real. We are not talking here about title. We are talking about real. Then the most important thing is to find the good life. And Socrates insists the good life is only one thing: happiness. Now, how do you find happiness? And curiously enough, when we awaken to the reality that everything is our own mind, that our mind is creating our basic reality, it's just a projection of ourselves. But when it happens that our mind is totally clean, we don't project nothing on nothing. We start seeing things as they are. And curiously enough, produces in us an infinite happiness. Just because everything is so beautiful. Just because life is so beautiful. Suddenly our resentment with life is gone. Our certitude that nothing wrong is going to happen to a good person is real certitude, because our soul really knows, and our divine mind really knows what is real for real. By the way, that's the only reality that we can know. That is why when we enter in the state, that reality of the eternity of the divine mind and the divine soul, becomes really manifest. In the Phaedo also, and this is not strange at all, at the end of the Phaedo, it's like, suddenly Socrates starts speaking about what is going to happen to him very closely. In that thing, he's so cool, really. He has nerves, It's fantastic. But, it's more than nerves, because he's not making a trip. It's so absolutely genuine. That is what is so chilling when we read the Phaedo, really, Because all the disciples, are at a point of really getting in a tantrum, He's going to die, and he's saying to them, hey, give me a break type of a thing. I'm going to die, come on. A little respect. But when they say, oh, we better can have even a little party yet. What? Are you crazy? I want to go. What is there is much better. That conviction, is so manifest. That is what it makes it such a sacred teaching. He really transmitted. Viva Socrates!
For more information about life and death, Ichazo's book called Human Culture and Enlightenment may be of interest to you. Go to Books by Oscar Ichazo on Amazon.com.